Dr. Marcus Way had built his orthopedic practice from nothing. 20 years of grueling shifts, strategic investments, and calculated risks had transformed him from a struggling immigrant's son into one of Seattle's most successful surgeons. His Lakeview mansion, his imported vehicles, his reputation, all testified to his singular focus, excellence through discipline, but his son Kevin was different. At 14, Kevin seemed allergic to ambition. He drifted through his private academy with mediocre grades, showed no interest in the pre-med track Marcus had carefully planned, and spent his afternoons staring at screens or mumbling monosyllabic responses to his father's questions about his future. The boy needs structure, Marcus often told his colleagues. He needs to understand that success requires sacrifice. Marcus had hired Mrs. Rosa Delgado 6 months earlier through an exclusive domestic service. She was Salvadoran, perhaps in her late 50s, with graying hair she kept in a simple bun and hands weathered by decades of work. She cleaned efficiently, cooked simply, and most importantly, stayed invisible, exactly what Marcus wanted. He rarely spoke to her beyond instructions. She was staff. Part of the household machinery. One Thursday in October, Marcus left his office at noon for a medical conference in Portland. But as he reached the airport, his phone buzzed with a cancellation notice. The keynote speaker had fallen ill, the event postponed. Irritated at the wasted afternoon, Marcus turned his Mercedes around and headed home. He arrived at 2:30 p.m., parking in the circular driveway. The house should have been quiet. Kevin would still be at school. Mrs. Delgado should be finishing the upstairs bathrooms, but as Marcus entered through the side door, he heard something unexpected: laughter. Kevin's laughter, genuine and unguarded, a sound so foreign Marcus almost didn't recognize it. He followed the sound to the kitchen. There, at the marble island, sat Kevin and Mrs. Delgado, surrounded by flour, eggs, and mixing bowls. His son, his unmotivated, unreachable son, was carefully folding dough while Mrs. Delgado demonstrated the technique, her hands guiding his with patient precision. "Like this, mijo," she was saying. "You feel when it's right. The dough tells you." "I think I'm getting it." Kevin's face was bright with concentration and joy. Marcus felt something cold crystallize in his chest. "What is going on here?" Both heads snapped toward him. Kevin's smile evaporated. Mrs. Delgado straightened, wiping her hands on her apron. "Dr. Way," she said calmly. "I didn't expect. Why is my son not at school?" Marcus's voice was sharp as a scalpel. "And why are you baking with him?" Kevin stood. "Dad, I can explain. Go to your room." "But now." Kevin's jaw tightened, but he obeyed, casting an apologetic glance at Mrs. Delgado as he left. Marcus turned to his housekeeper. "Mrs. Delgado, I hired you to clean my home. Not to play cooking games with my son during school hours." "Kevin came home early today," she said quietly. "Half-day schedule. He was alone. I thought, you're not paid to think about my son. You're paid to maintain this house." He paused, the words sharp in his mouth. "I don't know what you're trying to accomplish, but Kevin needs focus. He needs discipline. Not pastries." Mrs. Delgado met his eyes. In her gaze, Marcus saw something that unsettled him, not fear, but pity. "With respect, Dr. Way," she said, "your son doesn't need more discipline. He needs someone to see him." The words hit Marcus like an accusation. His face hardened. "You're overstepping. Significantly. Consider this a warning." She nodded once, began cleaning up the baking supplies in silence. Marcus walked away, but the image followed him, Kevin's animated face, the ease between them, the connection his son showed with the housekeeper that Marcus hadn't seen in years. It gnawed at him through dinner. A silent, microwaved affair. Kevin wouldn't meet his eyes. Over the following weeks, Marcus watched more carefully. He noticed how Kevin's expression would brighten when Mrs. Delgado arrived each morning. How they'd exchange small waves, brief conversations in Spanish. When had Kevin learned Spanish? He noticed the books that appeared on the kitchen counter. Not textbooks, but cookbooks, some with post-it notes in Kevin's handwriting. He noticed his son spending less time in his room and more time in the kitchen, after school, even when Mrs. Delgado wasn't there. What is this obsession? Marcus demanded one evening, finding Kevin watching a cooking video on his laptop. It's not an obsession, Dad. It's an interest. Cooking isn't a career. It's a hobby at best, a necessity at worst. Some of the world's best chefs are not my son. Marcus closed the laptop. You're 14. Your job is school. Pre-calculus. Chemistry. Building a foundation for medical school. I don't want medical school. The words hung between them like broken glass. Kevin, I've never wanted it. You want it. You've always wanted it. Kevin's voice cracked. But you've never once asked what I want. Marcus felt his control slipping. What you want at 14 is irrelevant. I'm trying to secure your future. No, Kevin said quietly. You're trying to recreate yours. He left the room before Marcus could respond. In November, Marcus arrived home early again, intentionally this time. He'd been leaving the office at irregular hours, checking. He found them in the kitchen once more. This time, they weren't baking. Mrs. Delgado sat at the table with Kevin, a textbook open between them. If you convert the fractions first, she was explaining, the equation becomes simpler. See? Kevin nodded, working through the problem. Oh. I get it now. Mrs. Chen explained it completely differently. Marcus watched from the doorway, unnoticed. Mrs. Delgado's explanation was clear, patient. Kevin was engaged in a way Marcus had never witnessed during their stilted homework sessions. When Kevin solved the problem, he grinned. Yes. Thank you, Rosa. Rosa. Not Mrs. Delgado. Rosa. Marcus cleared his throat. They looked up. Dr. Wei. Mrs. Delgado stood. Don't. He held up a hand. Don't apologize. I've been observing. Kevin went rigid, preparing for another lecture, but Marcus surprised himself. Mrs. Delgado, do you have a moment? Privately. She followed him to his study. Marcus gestured to a chair, the first time he'd ever invited her to sit in his presence. How long has this been going on? He asked. Since September. When Kevin first came home early. And the tutoring. He was struggling with algebra. I noticed his frustration. I taught high school mathematics in El Salvador before I immigrated. Marcus blinked. You were a teacher. For 17 years. Then my husband died, my credentials didn't transfer, and... She shrugged. I needed work. Housekeeping pays better than the jobs available to me here. He felt something uncomfortable shift in his chest, the realization of his own blindness. Why didn't you tell me? You never asked what I did before, Dr. Wei. You saw a housekeeper. That's all. The words weren't accusatory, just factual. Somehow that made them worse. My son, Marcus said slowly, seems to have formed an attachment to you. Your son, she replied gently, is hungry for connection. For someone to listen. I listen. Do you? Or do you direct? The silence stretched. Finally, Marcus asked, what do you talk about? Everything. His fears about disappointing you. His love of creating things, cooking, but also art, music. His feeling that nothing he does is good enough. She paused. He's a beautiful boy, Dr. Wei. Sensitive. Creative. But he's suffocating. Marcus felt anger flare, then die. Because she was right. When had he last had a real conversation with Kevin? One that wasn't about grades or goals or his own expectations. I don't know how to. He trailed off, a rare admission of inadequacy. Start by asking him questions, Mrs. Delgado said. Real questions. About what he loves, what scares him, what he dreams about. And then listen without planning your response. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. It's just not easy. She stood. If you'd like, I can stop the tutoring. The cooking. I can go back to being invisible. No. The word came quickly. No, please don't. I see now that you've been helping him. Truly helping him. She nodded. He's a good boy who needs room to become himself. After she left, Marcus sat in his study for a long time, thinking about the life he'd built. The success, the status, all of it constructed around a version of excellence that left no room for deviation. For creativity. For joy, for his son to be anyone other than a replica of himself. The change didn't happen overnight. Marcus began coming home earlier. He asked Mrs. Delgado to teach him some of what she'd been teaching Kevin, not the cooking, not yet, but the patience. The listening point one evening, he knocked on Kevin's door. Can we talk? Kevin looked suspicious. About what? About you. Really about you. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed. I want to understand what you love. What you want. Not what I want for you. Kevin stared. Are you serious? I am. The words felt clumsy. I've been a poor father. I've pushed my dreams onto you without seeing your own. Mrs. Delgado helped me understand that. Slowly, haltingly, Kevin began to talk. About his fascination with culinary arts, how creating something beautiful and delicious felt like magic. About his fear that Marcus would disown him for not wanting medicine. About the loneliness he'd felt in this huge house, with a father who was physically present, but emotionally absent. Marcus listened. Really listened. And felt his heart break and expand simultaneously. I won't pretend I'm not disappointed, Marcus said finally. I had dreams for you. But they were my dreams, not yours. He took a breath. If cooking is your passion, then we should explore it seriously. Culinary school. Apprenticeships. The best training available. Kevin's eyes widened. You mean it? I mean it. Excellence can take many forms. I was wrong to think there was only one path. For the first time in years, Kevin hugged him. At Christmas, Marcus did something unprecedented. He asked Mrs. Delgado to teach both him and Kevin to prepare a traditional Salvadoran meal. They spent the afternoon in the kitchen, 3 people from different worlds, creating something together. Marcus fumbled with the pupuses, burned his first batch of plantains, and laughed at his own incompetence in a way his son had never witnessed. You're terrible at this, Dad, Kevin said, grinning. I am, Marcus agreed. But I'm learning. Mrs. Delgado smiled as she watched them work side by side, father and son finally finding common ground. As they sat down to eat the meal they'd created together, Marcus raised his glass. To Mrs. Delgado, he said. For teaching my son. And for teaching me. To Rosa, Kevin corrected gently. Marcus nodded. To Rosa. For seeing what I couldn't. For giving my son the gift I'd forgotten how to give, attention, patience, and room to grow. Rosa's eyes misted. Family, she said simply, is not about forcing someone into a shape. It's about helping them become their fullest self. Marcus looked at his son, really looked, and saw not a disappointment, but a young man full of potential and passion. Different from what he'd imagined, but beautiful in his own right. "I'm learning that," Marcus said. Finally,